All right, here we are. We're live now. All right. All right, everybody. Welcome to Shifting Gears. And this week's topic will be the wonderful time of Speed Weeks again. Oh my God, gentlemen, the Speed Weeks are upon us once again. This is like Christmas for you guys. I mean, for all the NASCAR people out there, this is a welcome sight to see cars on track once again. And of course, we have a round table full of NASCAR experts, like I call them personally. So we're going to start around by going around table. We got ourselves Mr. Dylan. He's my longtime co-pilot here for these podcasts. And also we have our friend Austin Landon 11, aka Connor. How you doing, my friend?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, brother. We also got Orca Flop, also known as my friend Kyle. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm really looking forward to Speed Weeks, and I'm really interested to talk about it. So it's good to see you guys in the chat.
And another one of our big time partners now in these podcasts is his friend Dade. How you doing, my friend? Oh, I guess we lost him a little bit, but it's all good. I'm going to get the stream up and running on the YouTube right now so I can keep track of the chat that's going on right now. But anyways, we're going to start off with some nice little things heading into the few weeks. Oh, hang on a second. I got to lower this. There we go. We got ourselves all situated. Whoop-de-doo. I actually figured this shit out. That's wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Anyways, so we're going to start off with reviewing what happened on Sunday. You all know that the exhibition race that is known as the Clash took place, and to say the least, it was kind of a mess in a lot of ways. And I know we have Kyle's opinion on the show itself, but I want to turn to personally, I think one of the biggest NASCAR fans I know, Dylan. Uh, I never got to see you since Sunday, so I really want to know your brutal honest opinion. No punches pulled. Don't ride on NASCAR's male body part on this one. Say your honest opinion, brother.
The race was bad. It was possibly one of the worst races I've ever watched in my life. And I'm not saying that because of the single file racing. You got to expect that when you're having an exhibition race at 35 laps. The race was too long to begin with. But the constant on and off rain showers just completely ruined the momentum of the race. And just to have it end under caution due to rain with 16 laps to go, just completely ruined the start of Speed Weeks. And I can't wait for the start tomorrow.
It kind of was like we were all excited for Speed Weeks to start, and we were disappointed. We were let down. I mean, the famous quote I have when I go to races is always that there's one thing you can't control when you go to a race or when you watch a race, and that is the weather. But I think the weather doesn't play a factor in what the show was like before that happened. And this is where I kind of turn to you again, Mr. Dillon. With I think a lot of it has to do with the way the cars are set up, with the way the actual cars are designed, rather. So, do you think that the car designs in general play a factor in how we saw the racing on Sunday?
I mean, obviously there's something going on with the package, whatnot, and if there wasn't, there was a reason why NASCAR would stick with it, but they're not. With Talladega coming around, they will be going to a completely new package for the restrictor plate tracks. We're no longer having a restrictor plate moving to a tapered restrictor. But I also believe part of the reason why the racing was single file around the top, especially early in the race, because Ford had 6 cars lined up at the top of the racetrack. And once you have numbers like that with those 6 very fast race cars, they just completely take over the race. And also, the race is too long. When you have a 75-lap race, and the only lap that you really need to be concerned with is lap 75. Nobody's going to go out there on lap 25, especially before lap 25, and risk tearing their car up when they know there's going to be a caution. So they just need to shorten the race, in my opinion, to probably 30 laps or so. And that would probably have reduced the single file racing at the top.
That would help to a degree. I think it would help if they fix the arrow, if it would help that. They can do a lot of things to it, but there's quite many different things that they can do. A lot of variables. It's just so confusing. So I want to bring my friend Connor into this one because, first of all, Connor, I hope you're doing well. I hope your health is much better than what it was. This is your first Speed Weeks where you're kind of missing out on a lot of events, including the Rolex 24 over the past month. Um, from your perspective, watching it on TV for the first time in God knows how many years, what was it like, for you as a spectator for that race? What did you think of the race in general?
Boring. And
Well,
just jump the field, pretty much.
I think it's a lot of it has to do with perspective on itself too. You're at the track. I know everybody tends to think of the race differently, but I think all around in general, the mood and the atmosphere is just kind of dead. And this is where I kind of want to bring Mr. Orca here, Mr. Kyle. As far as the spirit of the clash is concerned, I seem to remember back in God knows how many years ago when, the race drew a big crowd. The race drew a big crowd. There was a lot of people surrounding the event. I know a lot of media coverage. Speed used to be there, and the race was a big hit. There was a lot of money at stake. Do you think the overall vibe and prestige of the Clash is pretty much dead at this point?
Well, I think sorry, I had to clear my throat there. I think in terms of the fans, it's been a letdown for sure in recent years, and I really don't think it seems like the past decade, especially since 2009, I think the fans have really treated the Clash as more of a joke race, similar to how they treat the All-Star race now. Like the Clash used to be an event where everyone could gather together and get hyped for the new season. Now it's just, well, it's the duels and then the 500, and that's what fans are mainly hyped for now. It feels like since the Clash has had inconsistent racing, the drivers, there's not much meaning in the Clash left. And that being said, I don't think the drivers really want to push as hard because, back in the day, I think the Clash was so interesting because the drivers would actually try and they would race their asses off because the Clash held meaning. I think it was like you had to get a pole in order to make the Clash, and you had to win a race or make the chase or finish top 10 in Winston Cup points or something like that back then. It was very limited means to make the Clash, and I think drivers felt rewarded when they made it. So I felt like the prestige of winning the Clash went up. And I think considering NASCAR's recent gimmicks that they've done in the last decade, I think the value is really decreased now that you've got, you can win a race, you can make the playoffs. So that's 16 people right there. You can win a pole, win a Daytona 500. There's a lot of more opportunities to make the Clash, and I think with the field going up that way, it kind of makes it gimmicky, and that turns the fans off, knowing that, drivers don't have to try that hard anymore to get into the Clash, let alone even trying the actual race itself, since it doesn't hold that much meaning except for bragging rights and $1 million. So I think that being said, the Clash has really gone down, and I think fans are mainly looking more towards the duels even more because that holds meaning because that determines your starting spot for the Daytona 500. So the value has definitely gone down.
So this is you've kind of got the topic here shifting a little bit. I like that. We're going to lean towards more now talking about what's going to come tomorrow for the duels. Now, there's quite a few predictions I have for the duels, and not a lot of them pertain to who's going to win, who's going to get the second row starting spot, who's going to fail to qualify, but more of is this race where the true testament of how the Daytona 500 is going to be? Because now we have Daytona 500 cars in race trim. So we're going to turn to a more technical guy than I am, Dylan. So do you think that Thursday is going to be a much bigger testament to what we're going to see on Sunday than what we saw last Sunday?
I mean, in my personal opinion, you're going to see the same race probably tomorrow night, twice over, than what you saw on Sunday. There's really no need to go out there and put your car in a situation where it can get torn up. And you'll probably see the Fords line up on the top. I think you got Keselowski and Keselowski and Blaney in double one. They'll probably get up around the top and not put their car at risk, and especially with the race being at night. There'll be a lot of grip on the racetrack, so just like you saw on Sunday because of the overcast. And it'll be a lot of single file around the top of the race.
So, also, big shout out to my friend Tristan and my friend Nathan and Matt in the chat. We got to have some of these guys in the podcast here eventually, especially Matt. I got to have him on a podcast one of these days because he provides a lot of good insight. If you want to watch some good diecast reviews, my friend Matt's got you covered there. He's a very professional, well-mannered type of guy. But, I want to, we're talking about now a qualifying race to fully set up for the Daytona 500. You are right. This is not the race where you want to put your car at risk. So I think what this is going to happen here, and bear with me on this one because my predictions for races are like me picking the winning lotto numbers. I'm almost never right. It's just how it goes. But I think what's going to happen on Thursday is we're going to see a little bit more action than we saw on Sunday. I'm a little positive about that one. Not terribly too much, though, because if a driver's in a good spot, I truly think that they're not going to put their car in a position where if they step out of line, they're going to go back to like 20th and start almost dead last on the grid. But I think we're going to see more of like how these cars are going to perform in actual race trim, which is always exciting to me. I always like seeing an extra test or extra practice to see how these cars are going to be fine-tuned for Sunday. I'm always that type of guy that loves to see things being built from the ground up. That's what's really exciting to me. And I'm going to turn to my friend Connor here. So, first of all, will you be attending the duels tomorrow, my friend?
Nope.
That's unfortunate, man. But as far as the duels are concerned, what do you think is going to be the atmosphere of the race? How do you think the race is going to play out? Do you think we're going to see a lot more action than what we saw on Sunday? Do you think we're going to have like a true testament of what's going to happen for the 500?
No, I do not think it will be the same because of the 500. Because one, the duels are going to be in a night race, and the 500 is going to be in a day race. And I heard maybe next Sunday we might have more of a chance of rain than we did on Thursday. So
this is quite true now. Different setup. You wouldn't think that track temperature and conditions would change a lot of things, but even restrictor plate races, they do. They tend to really shake things up quite a bit. I'm going to be more involved with the chat here for this podcast. My friend Crash said the smaller teams might put more of a fight. Then that's going to be exciting. That's going to be really cool. I'm going to love seeing those smaller teams actually fight for spots because we're going to see a lot of bumping this year, I believe. How many cars are qualifying, Dylan? Or trying to qualify?
40 for 42. And if I am correct, it'll be Brennigan and Brennigan. Who's the other one? Hold on, I'm looking at the entry list right now. Brennigan, 50 meters, and Joey Gates going for the spots in duel 2, with duel 1 being Tyler Reddick, Ryan Truex, and Parker Kligerman, with Tyler Reddick and Casey Mears already being locked into their qualifying speed on Sunday.
Also, my friend Matt brings up a good point here, too. Qualifying races is about showing your case and your talent along with your car to prove the team that you worked hard over winter to prepare for the biggest race of the year. I think that flat out says a lot of things right there. This guy makes a lot of sense. To work all winter, you want to showcase how well you performed all winter, how well you prepared the car. And no bigger testament than that is winning the duels. Or, well, of course, winning the 500. That's the biggest testament of how hard you worked all winter. You wind up winning the Harley J. Earl Trophy in your trophy case. But I like to go more towards my friend Kyle here. We didn't get to talk to him about his opinions about the duels. So I want to ask you, man, what do you think the race is going to be like on Thursday? What are you expecting going into the race? Like, a totally blind prediction here.
Well, I think for sure that from what we've seen in the duels, the drivers tend to push it a lot more in the duels than they do in the clash. Again, not trying to beat the clash like a dead horse, but I just feel like the duels hold much more prestige because you want to do whatever you can to start near the front in one of the most prestigious races in America, not the world. You want to do whatever you can to start near the front and be up towards the front in the early goings of the Daytona 500. That being said, I think that holds a lot more prestige in winning a clash would. So I think the driver's going to push it much more harder. And for what I have seen with this plate racing package, it seems like the cars themselves handle way better at night because it just seems like the track conditions suit the aerodynamic needs, and it's not as hard to handle as it would be in a cool weather during the day or cloudy weather. So I think you're going to see guys like Stenhouse, Blaney, Logano, Keselowski making moves. And I think it's going to be a lot easier for them to get up to the front, and therefore it's going to make it much more competitive. I think that also being said, with all the battling up in the front, if those small teams can catch the draft, they have a really good opportunity at starting up front and making a name out of themselves. Because literally these teams have basically paid an arm and a leg to get to Daytona in the first place. So they want to do whatever they can to start at the front row. And, obviously I think they're going to make moves too. And, they're basically go or go. I can't. Gosh, I can't speak today. Go or go home. Also someone like Tyler Reddick is probably going to push it as well since he's not exactly locked into the 500 because he was a late entry. I think you're going to see a lot of good battling during the duels. Hopefully it doesn't get too chaotic to where teams wreck their Daytona 500 cars, especially the small teams. We don't want to see them wrecking and, wasting millions of dollars on development of the car and preparation just to be wrecked out in the duels and not make the 500. So, however, I do think it's going to be much more competitive just with the prestige of trying to start up front in the Daytona 500. And I think it's mainly going to be the small teams that are going to be the ones to watch, like Casey Mears and Tyler Reddick. Granted, they're not small teams, but they're going to be ones to push because the duels, they're at stake. That's go or go home. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch tomorrow, and I can't wait for it.
Quite frankly, I can quite agree with you on a lot of points here. I think you made some point, and it literally just passed my mind of what you said here. But I think with the duels here, I think I kind of said the same thing when we were talking about the 24 hours qualifying and how matter. Well, in a way, regardless if it matters or not, do you want it on Friday morning when you have all your press releases and your team meetings? Don't you want to say, boss, hey, boss, we're starting P3 in the Daytona 500? I mean, that's a statement right there, if you ask me.
Oh, yeah, that's what makes the Daytona 500 so special.
Yeah, like you said, anytime you can bring home a checker flag on SPEEDWEEKS, that's just something that you should take great pride in.
A lot of people say that dual wins don't matter, but honestly, it defines how you're going to perform in the Daytona 500 doing this. And seeing how in recent years also, the Daytona 500 can be transitioned to night, and it also can show how the cars are going to handle and which drivers are going to be prominent at those times. I think that's one of the reasons why you saw Ryan Blaney do really good in the Daytona 500, especially towards the end, because he won duel number one. And he showed very good performance at the end of the Daytona 500 towards the end when it got darker. So I think it's also going to be a pretty big testament to how the cars handle how the drivers run at night. So that should be something to watch as well.
This is quite true now, my friend. So let's go back to Dylan here. Now we're talking about the hardcore predictions. You said the ones you think are going to fail to qualify, but how about the winners of the duels? Duel 1, Duel 2, who do you think will be taking home the checkered flag?
I'll be a little biased here, but Duel 1, I believe Brad Keselowski will take home the win. And Duel 2, it'll probably be between the Hendrick teammates of Alex Bowman and Chase Elliott. And Chase has won his duel the last 2 years, and I just believe that night car is going to be on a rail. And it will be very hard to pass when he gets out front early and often. So I'll go Chase Elliott for Duel 2.
I have duel number 2. Is this duel number 2 I have here? I think I have it because I see Chase Elliott on here. Oh, yeah, I have duel number 2 on here. So, Connor, now your predictions for the duels. Who do you think will be hoisting the checker flag and taking the victory?
I think Ryan Blaney is gonna win duel number 2, and what's his name? Crap. Oh yeah, Chase Elliott's gonna win duel number 1. Or wait, Elliott's in duel 2. Johnson.
That's right. Jimmy Johnson's in duel number 1. Chase Elliott's in duel number 2.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I got them mixed up. So.
No, you're fine. You're fine. It's your first podcast, man. I was a little bit nervous on my first podcast too. You're all good. This kid's earning his rookie stripes, right? People in the chat, he's earning his rookie stripes in this video.
Yes, he is a rookie.
He's a rookie.
Lightning
This is what we do in Indianapolis every month in May. Every time somebody's new to the track, we always contemplate putting yellow tape on their backpacks and if I'm their rookie. Like, I'm a rookie. I'm learning. Please be patient. My God,
I felt the same way when I came on with you and Kevin, the one podcast.
That's a great time. But anyway, so Kyle, what are your predictions now for the duels as far as race winners going?
Well, based off of what I saw from one particular Paul Menard, if he is racing duel number 1, I think Paul Menard could be a very big underdog. However, he did show very good promise during the clash. So I think actually that Paul Menard could win duel number 1. It may seem a bit unrealistic because he had no competition in the clash, but Paul Menard over the last year in 2018, he really proved himself. Won a stage at Talladega and ran top 10 the rest of the race. So Paul Menard is now proving that with that Wood Brothers equipment, he can make it work at the play tracks mainly. He knows how to do it. So even when he was at RCR, he was very consistent. So I think Menard could be someone to look out for. And I think in the end, Menard could be that guy who gets it done in the end when no one else thought. So I think Paul Menard's your guy for duel number 1. As far as duel number 2 goes, I believe Joey Logano's in duel number 2. Again, you can't really doubt Penske sometimes when it comes to the plate tracks. So I think Logano would be a pretty safe pick to go with for duel number 2, considering, he's had one of the best. He's one of the best plate racers out there, along with his teammates Keselowski and Blaney. So, but I think Logano outweighs the competition. So, I don't know. It's gonna be hard to see if anyone else could beat Logano, but honestly, I think Logano is a safe prediction, just going off of past statistics and how the consistency they ran in top 10 during the class.
Those predictions. I'm gonna be pretty bold here. It's gonna be hard to beat the Penskes. I'm being biased here, gentlemen. I know that. But Penske, I think, is probably going to either clean sweep the duels or at least win one of them. I think Keselowski is a big threat for duel number 1. The other person I want to point out, like you said, is Paul Menard. Shows some great speed in the clash. Fantastic plate racer as of late. Duel number 2, however, this is where it gets a little tricky. Because you have Chase Elliott, who's almost like a master at the duels these days. He's won the past 2 of them, I believe. And you have people like Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano in the duels. And damn well know that Joey Logano is one of the best restrictor plate racers of today, pretty much. I mean, this guy can put the car in places where it shouldn't belong and make it stick. So it's gonna be a coin toss. If I had to pick anybody, I would go with Logano. That's my bet. That's what I'm gonna have to say. But now have we talked about the duels? We talked about kind of who's gonna be struggling to qualify and all that crap. Now we get into the trucks. And before I begin with the truck race in itself, in general, there have been some last-minute press releases about the Gander Outdoor Truck Series. Wow, that is going to be so hard to say. I'm pretty much going to say Camping World Truck Series for the whole year, pretty much. It took me a solid 2 years for me to stop saying Craftsman Truck Series, so bear with me here, ladies and gentlemen. So I think we're going to turn to Dylan over here because he's been paying more attention to the press releases that I have. We're very late into the offseason. In fact, we're almost now pretty much leading into the season. And now, last minute, you're hearing about these rides and everything. I mean,
Yeah.
has the Truck Series become more like musical chairs, as Robin Miller once said about Champ Car, or is it just like, okay, they all knew about this stuff already, and we're just waiting until last minute to press release this because we don't want any distractions?
Well, I don't think this was meant to be a last minute change, and I don't even think Johnny Crowder or Juice Jr. had any intentions at the end of last year to be looking for a new place for the 2019 season. But after 3 years at Gallagher Motorsports, Johnny Crowder moved back to Thor Sport in the number 13 entry, and along with that, he will be carrying his championship winning crew chief from GMS Joe Jr. over to Thor Sport to compete for the championship in the 2019 Standard Outdoor Truck Series. Along with that, we have Brett Moffitt moving to the 24 truck. Last year's champion is taking over the ride that Johnny Stoddard had last year. Not the same number, but most of the same team, if I am correct, to battle Johnny Stoddard for the championship.
I'm glad you did. Sorry, I literally had to run outside and beg my mom not to put the washing machine on because I'm like, I'm doing the podcast, don't put the washer on.
Yeah, I was hearing that door open. I thought.
Yeah. Does anybody remember when I used to do a wash and they would do diecast reviews and all you hear is the washing machine going off? Oh, God. That's funny. I had to run out of the bedroom real quick to get the memo out. But so while I was out, I kind of missed half the press releases. And I'm not going to ask you to repeat those again. Believe me, that's something I'm not going to do. But do you think Johnny Sauter and Ben Rhodes, those are the ones that brought the press releases as of last minute, do you think that they'll find immediate success in new rides? I'm going to turn to my friend Connor on this one. Do you think those guys are going to find immediate success, or is it going to take a while now because it's such a last-minute deal?
Well, think about it. The last couple guys who've got new rides, like Brett Moffitt or somebody, have found success right away. And I don't know, it might take a while because of the team they're on, but who knows? It could take a while, or they could find immediate success right away. So we'll just have to wait to see on track.
The best testament, my friend, is when you're on the track. There's a saying, the best talk you can do is what you do on the racetrack. That's just hands down. That's the best way you can do it. As far as I think with the trucks are concerned, I don't know if I'm hearing correctly, but bear with me. I think the chat's going to help out better with this one than I could, and you guys help out better with this one, since I'm totally out of the loop when it comes to technical details about the truck series. Are they going to composite bodies as well and spec motors, or am I on drugs?
They've got the spec motors. They've had it since last year, and it's kind of upped up the competition, but I don't think they're going to go with composite bodies till at least 2024. But so, I don't think they would go to composite bodies at all, but I'm pretty sure they are going to stick with the spec engine for a while.
Well, you know who designed the spec engine, right? Ilmor. And guess who owns Ilmor?
Who?
Roger Penske.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, I have.
Roger Penske owns Ilmor, and Ilmor actually not only builds the spec motors in the truck series, but they also build the Chevrolet engines in IndyCar. That's a fun fact. So if you see an Ilmor truck at the truck races, that's Roger Penske's truck. And Roger's a billionaire; he could afford anything. My favorite autograph of all time will be Roger Penske on a blank check. That's might be my favorite autograph on there. But anyways, that's good. I kind of confirmed that because I've heard so many things about the truck series, the Xfinity series. Well, no, the Xfinity series is going to composite bodies. I think they're going full out this year, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
They went to composite bodies full time last year.
Oh, so I must have been a year behind. Oh well, no big deal. I think it's going to be pretty cool. I mean, anything to cut costs. I mean, normally I'm all about a guy who's normally about pushing the limits, pushing the edge of technology, make it go to its breaking point, to get the most power out of the car. But it seems like now, if we can save these teams a little bit of money, a little bit of money can go a long ways, especially making cheaper chassis, cheaper aero bits, anything to save a few bucks. keep these teams around. And I don't know about you guys, but I think the Truck Series is a pretty relatively cost-effective series. I mean, didn't somebody, I think it was Mike Harmon, or I could be wrong, or Chris Fontaine, whoever the hell that guy was, he was still using a chassis from 2003.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're talking about Jesse Little, actually, because I remember, I think they made a comment that he ran a chassis from 2003, and he was performing in the top 10 and top 15 at both Gateway and Texas. Like, it's amazing how cost effective the Truck Series has been. And I think that's because of the running of Ben Kennedy. I think ever since he's been the CEO, he's found the perfect ways to get more trucks on the grid. And I think that being said, considering the fact that the Truck Series doesn't really have that many top teams, I think that makes that's what makes the Truck Series so competitive. Because you can literally run from a chassis from 03 and you can still be very competitive because it's so cost effective. Because now that they have a spec engine, these teams don't have to go out and develop their own V8s. And usually, now everyone has the same type of engine. So it's cool to see that. And I think that's a great way to see how the Truck Series competition has stepped up ever since last year. So that being said, you can really throw out anything you can get, and you can run top 15 in that. So it's really cool to see.
That's a good topic to talk about, being cost effective in racing. Well, of course, racing is never going to be cheap. It's never going to be. That's just flat out, hands down. Even if you're running a go-kart team, you're going to pay good money to field that go-kart. But to have cost effective racing, I think is going to be key for the Truck Series' health. Because, like you said, with Ben Kennedy now kind of the president of the Truck Series, the guy who's the big cheese in running this, it seems like as a driver who has been in the garage area, been in the shops all the time when he was a driver, it seems like he kind of has a different understanding to how the series should be run. And I don't know about you guys, but I think that kind of makes it for a better businessman once they get into the big office role in NASCAR. Now, I don't know about you, Dylan, but I think that's just going to be a big help to the series and its health overall.
Oh, no doubt. And interesting point that you made earlier with the trucks having more onto the grid over the last few years. I believe, if I was correct, 39 trucks will be showing up for 32 spots Friday afternoon at Daytona.
And was it only a couple of years ago where we barely struggled to fill the 32 truck grid? Excuse me. I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see that. It's not great to see that we're sending trucks home, but it's great to see that we are having more teams show up to the grid. Some very talented drivers, and it'll be interesting to see which 32 trucks do make the field on Friday night.
I think that's going to be extremely interesting. So now we talk about the race in general. This probably is going to be one of the more exciting races of the weekend. Trucks are always exciting. Now, as far as the race results go, who do we think is going to win the race? Best predictions, gentlemen. I'm going to start off with Connor here. What do you think? Who thinks is going to win the truck race?
To be honest, I don't even know.
I can't hear. What about you guys?
I can't hear it. You just got silent.
No, it's no big deal. Anyways, I'll go quickly make my prediction here. I'm gonna pull up the truck entry list here. I was gonna joke around and say Norm Benning, but everybody loves Norm Benning. Come on, who doesn't love Norm Benning?
He's slow, but yes, I love Norm Benning. Norm Benning is a living legend.
Norm Benning's the man, the myth, and the legend. What are you talking about?
He is a living legend.
In all seriousness, though, as a guy who collects records, I tend to love the Crosley brands. I don't have a Crosley turntable by any means. In fact, I have one of the competitors here, but I always love the trucks and the cars on the grid. So my personal bias says David Gilliland's probably going to win the race. Quite frankly, I think he's a good plate racer, and I like to see that Crosley truck up front.
It's a pretty bold prediction, but it makes sense.
And what do you think, Kyle? What do you think? Let's see if you can come up with a better prediction than I could.
Okay, to be totally honest with you, with the Truck Series, kind been unpredictable when it comes to the plate races. This is going to sound really crazy, but for some reason, this one guy who has run very consistent through the plate races and has won many plate races, I'm thinking it's Johnny Sauter. And looking over the past few years, Johnny won. What was it? Did he win the 2016 truck Daytona race? I believe.
Yes.
He won that race. I'm pretty sure because 2017 was Kaz Grala, and he won the 2013 Talladega race. And over the last decade, we've seen Johnny Sauter constantly run up front and make bold moves at the plate races. And I think Johnny Sauter's been known to do that in the Truck Series, which is why he's been so good. And he has 6 top 10s, and if not more, at the plate races. Johnny Sauter's been one guy to always watch for. And I think that with that being said, he's going to be a massive threat at Daytona. And I think a lot of people are going to look at him as a guy to watch out for. And I think, now that Johnny Sauter is back with ThorSport, I think that experience and the equipment from ThorSport with Ford and Roush Yates engines, I think Johnny Sauter is going to be a force to be reckoned with. And the only competitor I could really see is probably Grant Enfinger. He's also another really good plate racer in the Truck Series. Won at Talladega in 2016, proved himself there. And I think it's going to be a battle between Grant Enfinger and Johnny Sauter. But I think Johnny Sauter, in just terms of being the experienced veteran, he's just been able to close out races better. And I think Johnny Sauter is going to kick off the season with a bang. And he's going to win at Daytona.
Good prediction, man. Now I'm going to go with Mr. Dillon here. We'll see if you can come with a better prediction than both of us, man. I'm seeing quite a few stars here. David Gillen's son, Ty Gillen's competing, Harrison Burton, Mike Snyder, Brendan Poole's competing in the race. I forgot about that. Ross Chastain's also competing in the race. Well, got a lot of good guys. Oh, Bobby Gearhart's competing. I didn't know that either.
Loaded field. But I'm going with Ty Gillen. And their GMS has won the last 3 races that Daytona, and they have really dominated the plate racing in the Truck Series. But something tells me that this is going to be the week that Ty Gillen finally gets the monkey off his back and gets that 4 truck in the victory lane. He was so close to doing that a couple of times last year. As in fact, actually wrecked out battling for the lead in his only plate start in the Canada Outdoors Truck Series.
That's going to be tricky for you to say.
Yeah, I feel like his dad is going to push him to the win. I feel like that would be a great thing to see. And, you can never count out the KBM truck no matter where they go.
Very good, my friend. Very good for predictions. I think it's an exciting race. I don't know about you guys, but as far as the quality of the racing is concerned, quite frankly, I think this is going to be a good show. I mean, this is probably going to be one of the more exciting races of the year, depending because how those trucks are well set up. I mean, they're beautifully designed trucks, and I think they'll do quite fine on the race at Daytona.
Can you hear me?
A predictable race throughout Speedweeks.
Go either way, my friends. So we're gonna kind of lead towards now Saturday. Saturday was a pretty fun show last year. Quite entertaining in a lot of ways. Now, kind of leading into Saturday, what shall we expect, gentlemen? Because what I'm thinking what we're going to expect here is we have very few Cup drivers in this race. I mean, we only got a handful. So it's going to be a testament for these young Xfinity drivers to go after these Cup drivers and beat them on the racetrack. Do we expect the Cup drivers to outperform them drastically, or should we see them actually take the reins and actually pull some muscle at this racetrack? What do you think, Kyle?
Well, regarding the Xfinity Series, I think that's one of the most unpredictable races, honestly. Very unpredictable, but when it comes to Xfinity, you really don't know who's going to win. As the recent years I've seen, it seems like really who's ever really gotten the best pushes at the end, usually you get that are the ones to get an advantage. especially from what used to be tandem drafting. But honestly, I think we got a couple of leeches running this race. I think Chase Elliott is going to be leeching. From what I heard off of my friend Hayden off the Smoke 14 show, I believe Chase Elliott's going to be running the 8 car, so we got one leech. Jeffrey Earnhardt, he's in the race as well. I think he could be a very big competitor. Granted, I guess technically he's a leech as well. I don't know really I don't see how you can really go against a leech in this scenario because it just seems like they've been the ones to dominate the plate races. I feel like last year was kind of a fluke because it was mainly, Eric Almirola and Joey Logano and Larson out front. So that being said, I just don't really see a way you can really go against Chase Elliott in this case scenario. He won the 2016 race at Daytona and has constantly shown really good competition in the Cup Series. And I just think that kind of outweighs the competition, and he's going to be probably unbeatable. He's in Junior Motorsports equipment, which is some of the top equipment in the Xfinity Series. And just Chase Elliott is a great plate racer, but sometimes can be a little bit too overly aggressive. But other than that, I think when it comes to the Xfinity Series, Chase Elliott's been a guy to close the deal on a consistent basis. So I think Chase Elliott's going to be the guy who wins at Daytona, just because of the main reason. Yeah, he's a leech, and he can close the deal in the Xfinity Series, especially when it comes to plate racing.
Quite frankly, quite be, man. Always a possibility that he could win. Never count him out. So I want to talk to my friend Connor here. We had a word from him in a while. So are you just going to the 500, or are you going for the Xfinity race or the truck race or anything like that, or just for the 500?
Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you. You good?
All right. No, I'm not going to any of them this year, unfortunately. So.
Well, just get better soon, man. I'm sorry that you can't go any of the races this year. I mean, we feel bad, but your health definitely comes first, and we just want to see you back 100% soon, man.
Yeah, hopefully soon.
Yeah, but anyways, even though this is kind of going to be a depressing weekend for you because you won't be at the track, believe me, I've gotten some depressions from not being at the track myself. What's take going to come out for Saturday's race? Are we going to expect maybe the Cup leeches to maybe dominate the race, or do you expect maybe these younger Xfinity drivers to possibly shine at this race? Because for all we know, we could have a lot of young talent in this race that could potentially win it. So what do you think, brother?
Well, I was thinking about Ryan Reed or Elliott Sadler, but nope, that just went out the window during the off season. So, but mainly I'm thinking Chase Elliott and Brad Keselowski will probably be contending for the win because they're two of the best plate racers right now, honestly.
Right, and they got 300 miles worth of practice pretty much for the 500. I mean, this is quite frankly a glorified test session for them per se. And Mr. Dillon, now going to you, man. So, what is your kind of prediction for Saturday? What do you think is going to be the end result? Do you think we're going to see the Cup drivers win it and shine and use this race as basically a glorified test session, or do we think it's going to be the Xfinity guys going for broke?
Well, I feel like it's pretty easy to take and say, the Cup drivers are going to go out here and they're going to dominate like they usually do. But you never know. It's Daytona. It always seems to unexpected happen. Last year I believe we had 5 overtimes in this race. Something tells me that this year it's not going to be a Cup Series driver that wins this race. I feel like it's going to be an underdog. It's going to be a guy that runs for the points in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. And the team that's really dominated the plate racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series has obviously been Junior Motorsports. They've won, I think, the last 2 or 3 races in the Daytona in the spring, to open off the season. And I feel like Michael Annett is going to pull off the victory to open off the season this year. I know he's really underperformed in that car the last 2 seasons, but I feel like with the change in the number and having Travis Mack on Fox, the Junior Motorsports car is going to be fast, and if he can just survive the race, Michael Annett can pull off the victory.
That's a very bold prediction.
That's a very bold prediction. I would not expected that, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of good.
And for Junior Motorsports, it's a fast race car, and they cut it down to just four. Three teams running for the points, and Travis Mack has proved that he can be a great crew chief. And that 5 car ran a lot better at the end of last season once it got down to last 5 or 6 races with Travis Mack on the pit box. And I believe this one car is going to have a pretty stellar season compared to what he's done the last 2 years. And I believe that if there's going to be an underdog that pulls it off, it'll be Mike Lindett.
Good prediction, man. Let me tell you that.
That's probably one of the boldest predictions I think I've ever heard. Michael and that. That's all right. If you're right, we all owe you.
You'll like my 500 prediction here soon. So.
Boy, this is gonna be a tough one. I would have to say Keselowski, man. I gotta go with him for winning the Xfinity race. I mean, I hope it's somebody that's an underdog. I hope it's somebody competing for the points championship. But my mind says Keselowski's probably gonna do it. That's just the way I'm going for this one. And quite frankly, this is another one. Go ahead.
To add on to that pick there, Rob, Team Penske has never won NASCAR Xfinity race at Daytona. They have never won. Out of all the things Rodney Penske has done, they have never won a Xfinity Series race at Daytona.
Well, I wanted them to win one year. That year, Sam Hornish Jr. drove that PPG car. That was a car that I wanted to win that race, but I think that car crashed out. But yeah, I never knew that they did not win a single Xfinity race at Daytona. That's quite right, though, because there was a number of years where Tony Stewart was the guy to beat. That was a lot of years where Tony Stewart was literally like I think my friend Crash said this. My friend Crash, my friend Rowdy said this. He was literally the master of speedweeks. Like if you wanted to win a speedweeks race, you had to be Tony Stewart. Except for the 500, of course, which is very unfortunate. I wish you could have won 2008. Anybody remember 2008?
Oh yeah, I think I do.
12 car.
I remember Newman going by him, so.
I remember seeing that race, and I'm just thinking to myself, oh my God, really? I wanted Stewart to win that race on the last lap.
I think the most heartbreaking Daytona 500 for Tony Stewart was probably 2007 because I think that year he was the most consistent through speed weeks, and he was running literally in the top 5, battling for, I believe it was 3rd with Kurt Busch.
Yes.
And it's just like he was faster all speed weeks, got basically a top 5 in every single race, like in his dual race and the at the time the Budweiser shootout, like that was probably his best record speed weeks of his career, and it was just so depressing and sad to see the fact that after all that speed he was carrying, and he had great momentum going into the 500 that year. Just to see that number 20 Monte Carlo getting destroyed was just very, very sad because it could have been him just breaking a losing streak that's been a burden on him since 99. So,
and then after that, it just became a survival race pretty much.
It was after that crash. I mean, you're right. After that crash in 2007 is when business started to pick up because it was quite well spread out because Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch carried most of the speed throughout the whole race in general because they were the 2 strongest cars in the race. And once those 2 guys were wiped out, then all bets were off. It was game on. Gloves off, go at it. And I don't know about you guys, but another heartbreaker that year, we all know, I wanted Mark Martin to win that race. I don't know about you.
Me too.
Remember that race?
Oh, yeah.
Now, were you guys rooting for Mark at that race, or are you guys rooting for Kevin Harvick to come by him?
I didn't really know because at the time I was still a Martin Truex Jr. fan when he drove for DEI. I honestly, I think at the time, like, I liked Martin Truex Jr., but I didn't really consider him my favorite. But I just remember, like, in 2007 was the year I got into NASCAR. And, when I got into NASCAR that year, I got into it towards the middle part of the year. And when I was 3 years old, I didn't get to watch the 07 Daytona 500. So I watched the replay of it. I saw the finish. I was kind of just astounded at the fact that Harvick won. But in a sense, I didn't know who to root for. But I was just astounded by the finish. But looking back on it, my 3-year-old self didn't really know who to root for, but I knew back then I liked Martin Truex Jr. and Brad Keselowski. That's about it. But now, looking back on the first Daytona 500 finish I ever saw, 2007, I think I would have wanted Mark Martin to win because that would have just been such a statement to his career. Never won a championship, has been one of the nicest guys out there. It just would have been so amazing if he could go out with a Daytona 500 win. That would have been amazing. And I think Mark Martin is one of the most deserving drivers of a championship and a Daytona 500 of probably all of the NASCAR drivers, if you ask me. So
Mark Martin and Carl Edwards are the most deserving of a 500 and a championship, in my opinion.
Quite frankly, I agree with both of you, and we get a third one, Rusty Wallace. I wish
Rusty deserved a lot more than he got.
That he should have won to 1999. I must admit that. I was rooting for him as a little 5-year-old, and let me tell you, it was not a happy household when Jeff Gordon passed him and he actually won the race. But that's what drove us to that race alone. Even though Rusty didn't win, drove me to become a Rusty Wallace fan because I saw him dominating the race. I saw him, and I was like, that guy's gonna win. I wanted him to win so bad, and then it didn't happen. But he won my heart, though. And 20 years later, I'm still a diehard fan of his, even though he's retired for like 15 years now. But I think the chats. We're gonna open up the chat a little bit more. We're gonna open up the chat, so we're gonna let the fans talk to us a little bit, even though we only got like a couple watching right now because I think we're on the same time as that weekly podcast is going on, right?
Yeah, they had an interview with Alan Bestwick, so at that point everyone wanted to see that. And I kind of am going to go back to listen to that too because, my God, dude, Alan Bestwick, that was my childhood commentator. God damn it. Someone ought to pick him up at some point because he's literally a free agent sitting on his couch and doing nothing. By far, I think my favorite commentary crew in all of NASCAR was Benny Parsons, Wally Dallenbach, and Bestwick. Oh my God, I don't think you can get better than that. People say the Fox commentary group is the best, but I think if you ask me, early 2000s NBC was where it was at. So,
and now NBC's terrible.
Anything 2000. God, those guys were great. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you guys noticed. I don't know if I said this anywhere on social media, but the intro song "Fuel," right? I actually bought the album the other day. I had to go buy it because I was at the record store. I was flipping through the records and I saw the Metallica album. I said, "Oh, the Fuel song's on there. I'm gonna go buy it." It was $18. It was worth it for that one song. And record collecting can be a little bit expensive.
Gosh, I just wish someone could hire Alan Bestwick. Obviously, I believe Wally Dallenbach's with Fox now, so that's cool to see. And then we had the very sad passing of Benny Parsons. So,
my friend Jackson said if I watched the class review from David Land, I did. I actually did with I believe my friend Matt Skipper. I watched it with.
I watched that video too. I watched it.
Yeah, I watched it, and I think I'll be spending Sunday with him, pending on his approval. So I think I'll get his bold, hardcore, knee-jerk reaction to the 500 when I go see him. Last year I was actually in his house last year when I saw the 500, and let me tell you, he was pissed off after that race.
I was too. I was literally punching the wall. I was just screaming, "Why the fuck would you make that move, Austin?" I was so mad.
God almighty, he was pissed off after that race. And quite frankly, I don't know, I kind of was too a little bit, but I was kind of more chill about it. David was straight up no chill, and he uploaded the video about it as soon as I left his house.
When the bumpers don't line up on the Camaros, if you look at them, they're like a triangle.
They are
Austin
indeed.
Dillon lifted off in that situation, and Austin Dillon was getting turned by Bubba Wallace. Austin did the right thing. He kept his foot in the gas. You put yourself in that position when you block on the last half of the Daytona 500. Austin Dillon did nothing wrong.
Yeah, certainly you can't blame him. But
the clash finish from just a week before that, the same thing happened on the last lap of the clash. It just happened a little further back. You just can't push with the Chevy Camaro nose. And ended up causing the big one on the last lap of that race. I believe it was Larson that got into the back of Jimmy Johnson.
I think so. I forget about last year's clash. That clash was so forgettable. Like I don't remember anything from the clash.
I remember it. I remember it. Go on.
I can forget about 2017 clash. Good grief.
Yes.
My goodness, man. Anyways, we were kind of want to wrap this up here because I want to get to filming some of the IRA broadcasts. I think we're going to do another take of that tonight. Which, by the way, if you guys haven't heard, we're doing a 500-mile race at Fontana. It's going to be a big old simulation of the biggest. Actually, some of my favorite YouTubers out there will be competing in the race. People from YouTube, people from the social media world, people from the radio show department. You know, a lot of my good friends will be competing in the race, and quite frankly, all three of these gentlemen will be in the podcast. Will be drivers in that race. So, good luck to all of you, gentlemen. You're in the hands of me.
Oh boy,
I'm the judge, jury, and executioner for this race. And I hope that the race I run tonight or whenever I decide to actually film the raw footage, it's going to be a great race, competitive race, 500 miles, and there's no mercy whatsoever. You know,
anybody else about having their life in the hands of a soulless ginger?
You just have no souls, which, quite frankly, I have no soul either. So that kind of proves the point now, doesn't it? Anyways, we're kind of very soulless ginger. You kidding? I'm a Squidward.
They should have played Sweet Victory in the Super Bowl. Hey, Rob, actually, that's a suggestion. Play Sweet Victory before the race.
Oh, God. That'd be nice to play it, but I don't know what the hell are you guys doing for the 500 anyways?
Oh, me? I'm watching it with my buddies and my family. That's what I'm doing.
What are you doing?
I'll probably be cursing at the TV.
I'll probably be watching
Me too.
TV.
Depending on how it ends, I'll do the same thing I did last year.
Predictions.
Yeah, we got to give our 500 predictions here. I think we kind of wrap this up with our 500 predictions. You know, I would love to go with my man, Kyle Larson. I would love to go with him, but he's not a really good plate racer. So I'm not going to go with him. I'm going to make a bold prediction here. Not really bold. Forget about that. I think Ryan Blaney's going to win the race. I like to see Ryan Blaney win. That beautiful – he's driving Menard's car, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, great. Yes, I would love to see that Menard's car in victory lane at Daytona. I don't know about you, gentlemen, but that would be a beautiful car. That'd be one of the brightest cars ever pulled in the victory lane.
Hopefully, he doesn't crash it again.
Well, I would hope not. Well, yeah, you're whatchamacallit, you're testing my luck here, Connor. My luck is
I believe Brady is turned into a junkyard. And
you guys gonna get
predictable, unexpected winner at the end of 500 miles on Sunday. Kyle go a little bit further than 500 miles to be completely fair. But something tells me that Daniel Suarez is going to be the guy that pulls off from Daytona 500 this season.
Okay, hold on. You said Michael Annette and now Daniel Suarez. You are very bold, my friend.
I'm going for it, man.
This guy's always been the most bold-ass guy I've known for a long time.
Michael Annette.
I think it's time everyone gets another win at the plate race.
You'll like my predictions here soon, so.
Now, Connor, what do you think is going to Daytona 500? Who do you think is going to be hoisting the trophy?
Casey Mears, Ryan Blaney, or Martin Truex Jr.?
Please be Blaney or Truex.
What do you got against Casey Mears? You know who's his uncle, right?
Rick Mears.
Yeah.
One of the best IndyCar drivers of all time.
Arguably the greatest. Well, that's a whole nother conversation, my friend. we'll save that conversation for the magical month of May.
Good
Can't wait
grief.
for that month. I really can't. That's all. It's gonna be fun.
And also, a couple of fun things on my channel coming up. The IndyCar crowd, you are going to be loving what is coming up here on this channel here. You know, we got a lot of we got some IndyCars coming in. The IndyCar diecast from Greenlight. We got the Scott Dixon Championship car, and we also got the Takuma Sato Portland race winner. And we're going to go over those diecasts in detail. It's almost going to be a throwback because I'm contemplating for my IndyCar reviews doing my old style reviews for those. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun filming those IndyCar videos, and especially coming from me, who is probably, if you put it against me and David as far as IndyCar fan viewership goes, I think we're like two biggest IndyCar fans you could find in the YouTube community, pretty much. Not to toot our own horn, not to self promote ourselves, but we kind of know what we're talking about. I don't know about you, gentlemen, but it'd be exciting times. So, did we wrap up here? Who didn't go with the Daytona 100 predictions?
That would be me.
Oh, I forgot about you. So sorry.
You sound so true about that.
Except I'm not, but go ahead anyways.
All right. I'm usually not that much of a bold guy. I usually go off of statistics that are been proven factual and pretty dominant. However, I think we can all agree that Ford is going to be probably the most dominant manufacturer at Daytona, and I think the Ford Mustang proved very worthy at the Clash, since most of its cars were running up towards the front and were able to make aggressive moves with the terrible plate racing package we currently have. My Daytona 500 prediction is going to be none other than Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Here's why.
Hopefully he doesn't wreck the field again.
Yeah. You know what, though? I think I look back on those incidents with Stenhouse. He was the only one at those races that was trying to make moves. And honestly, with the terrible car we have now, I think it was sometimes, at least the one where he hit Brad Keselowski, I feel like that one was a racing deal. Maybe it was him just trying to side draft and stuff like that. But I think ever since Stenhouse got those two wins, one at Daytona and the other at Talladega, I think Stenhouse has by far been one of the most aggressive plate racers ever. And you're going to see him be very aggressive in the duels as well, so don't count him out in that either. However, I think Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he was very aggressive last year at Daytona, and he proved to be one of the best plate racers in the field over the course of the last 2 years. And I think with that, he's going to be one of the very few drivers in the field that's going to make moves. That's going to do something no other driver is going to do. He's going to be the one guy who pulls down to the bottom when everyone else is in a freight train on the top. And I think with the aggressiveness, as long as Stenhouse isn't too over-aggressive to the point where he is wrecking himself and maybe the rest of the field, I think Stenhouse is going to be your guy. Because, yes, you do have the Penske's and you have the Stewart-Haas cars that are going to be very fast. But at the end, I think it's going to come down to which driver has the balls to make a move. And I think when it comes down to that, I think Stenhouse is the number one guy you got to look at. I could see him getting it done in the end. And I think Ricky Stenhouse Jr. with the Roush Yates powered engines is going to be very strong in the Daytona 500. And I think he's going to be one to look out. And I think in the end, no one's going to see him coming. And I think Stenhouse is going to be your guy to win.
Very good predictions. Alcon, you want to wrap something up here?
I was just gonna say, hopefully that Stenhouse doesn't cause a problem, because whenever it's not his team causing the problems, it's always him causing the problems. That's all I have to say.
Well, we can all save that for after the 500 is over with. Dylan, any last thoughts you want to give for this Daytona 100 edition podcast?
Look out for Paul Menard as well on Sunday. He's got Joey Meyer, very, very talented plate spotter, and as we all know, spotters mean a huge deal at the restrictor plate races. If you see Paul Menard up front late in the race, do not be surprised. He's one of the most consistent and best plate racers in the sport.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It was always a great time hanging out with you. And of course, we're going to have this podcast in full in its entirety on the YouTube channel as a regular upload. So anytime you want to go watch it, feel free to do so. If you just chimed in now, or if you just want to chime in at any time whatsoever, please comment, like, and subscribe. And on behalf of Orca, on behalf of Austin Ladden, also on behalf of Dylan, I hope we pass the audition.
Everyone subscribe to